So we start with session 2, which is Leadership Challenge, Building the Multidimensional Next Line. And I'd like to invite on stage the panelists, starting with Sunil Kumar, Center Head, World Bank Group. Sunil is the Center Head of the Global Center of the World Bank Group at Chennai, responsible for providing overall strategic leadership to the office. Please welcome Sunil Kumar. Jaideep Agarwal, request you to please come. India GBS leader, Warner Brothers Discovery. Jaideep is the leader of the GCC of Warner Brothers Discovery in Hyderabad. This is a relatively newer setup for WBD in India and has been established as the first greenfield office globally after the merger of Warner Media with Discovery Communications. Warm welcome, Jaideep. Sandeep Kulkarni, Senior Vice President and Head, Worley Enterprise Services. Sandeep is the head of Worley Enterprise Services. He heads the initiative to lead Worley's global business services operations globally, with centers located in India, Malaysia, Brazil, and Colombia. Warm welcome to you, Sandeep. And Urs-Ulrich Katzenstein. I hope I got that right. Head Business Development, Continental Europe, Quintes Global. Thank you for coming all the way from Switzerland, Urs. And to moderate this session, we have Sanjay Gupta. So it's over to you, Sanjay, to take that forward.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for being back on time after tea. I think there are going to be a few more people coming in, but we'll start anyway because the clock has begun. And once the clock begins, we should begin too. And let me first of all welcome the panelists, an esteemed panelists, many of you whom I've known for a long time and have a distinguished career already and a furthermore distinguished career coming up. So I'm going to be asking some very simple questions, some things which are extremely important, but a few things before that. I just realized Sunil's from World Bank, Jaideep's from Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers, and Sandeep's from Worley. 3 Ws. So from Urs and me, now we have the choice of either selecting Wipro or Walmart or Wells Fargo. So we'll figure out, if we've got to be consistent. I mean, I think W is the fashion for the day, so we'll probably be thinking in those lines at all. So that apart, I'd first of all like to make one more remarkable statement about one of the panelists, Mr. Sunil Kumar, and we'll begin with Sunil, but first Sunil, I have no knowledge about any person, and certainly very, very few in this room, who would have spent 23 years in one single organization. World Bank. Can you imagine? In the modern day and world, do you know of anybody? I don't. Is there anyone in the panel here in the delegates here in the room who have spent 23 years or more in the same organization continuously? Is there anybody? Show of hands, please. No one. Anybody who's done over 15, 1-5? You have, Urs? Okay. We have, yes, one who's done. Anyone else? Yes, okay. I can see one more. Can you imagine? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. But Sunil with 23, hats off to you. You are by far head and shoulders above everyone else. And it's a very good place to start, Sunil, and I will begin with you. Because we're going to be talking about developing the next line. And you see, I can start with my story a little while ago. I spoke a bit about it previously as well. But very, very honestly, I came into this industry and into this particular role more by accident than by design. And I think that is pretty much the story for a lot of other people as well. In 95, I joined American Express, and that sort of threw me into a completely blind corner. We had to struggle and maneuver our way around, etc. And then, you join newer organizations which are coming up after that. There were very, very few precedences. There was nobody who could really guide in the right direction. Of course, there were mentors. There were teachers, there were a lot of people who you could reach out to and seek guidance from. Not that they knew anything better, but they obviously had a little more experience than you did. So they were there for you to ask if you needed any. But directionally, what comes next, their guess was a shade better than yours. And that's this kind of struggle we found ourselves in. And we sort of maneuvered our way, which is probably true for a lot of people in this room. And one of the things we continue to struggle with is that youth and younger people are the need of the hour. They are the ones who are going to take this industry and the world forward. So I am always on the lookout to see who is it that can be taken up as number two, because one fine day, whether I like it or not, I'm not there. The organization chief is not there. And when we look at the age of the people who lead units or people who lead organizations, we find that progressively those ages are coming down. And the people do not really have the patience to wait for 30 years, 40 years to become top of their business units or top of their organizations. So there are things that we need to do now to ensure that let's take Rakesh as a case in point, for example, a classic example of a CEO of an organization. The kind of age that he is, he's got so much of experience behind him already. He's being trained, he's being groomed so very well, he's handling everything so perfectly and taking everything in his own hands, because that is exactly what is required for a progressive head of a unit. And so Sunil, now this question to you really, and largely because you have that kind of experience of 23 years in an organization. You must have seen a lot of churn within the organization and you've stuck. So how do you see in the future today the kind of things that you may need to do to ensure that whosoever comes in as the first line or the second line, succession plan or whatever you may call it, is there for that period of time that you spent within the organization? The kind of stickiness that you can build, the kind of maturity that you can build in your second line, etc. So that's the direction that I think I'm sort of seeking your advice on. So over to you.
Thank you,
So on.
Sanjay. Great to connect with Sanjay after 23 years. I have not seen him for the last 23 years, and he looks the same. What I saw him in American Express.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, so you have not aged. And I think I have also not aged, except for my hairs.
Something that you've all turned gray now.
Yeah, so 23 years with the World Bank. I asked myself question, why people leave any organization? People leave an organization is that role, that what role you want to kind of perform in the new organization, your, the authority, your learning, and of course, every one of us wants to make decent living, right? These are some of the broad parameters, and also potential of the role to grow further into, further, where you can kind of create more impact. And if one gets all this in the current organization where you are challenged, where you get to learn a lot every day, where you can make an impact because of the business that you are in, and also when you contribute to the goals of the institution and you make decent living. So why to leave? Why to go? So the mission of our organization is so powerful that, that two broad goals that we have: ending extreme poverty on sustainable basis on a livable planet, and boosting shared prosperity, where we try to improve the standards of living across the globe. So the mission of the organization also binds us in the institution. Now, coming to your question about the next in line leadership, I think there are certain basic principles I keep in mind because that's very important. And leadership is such thing that, one size doesn't fit all. It is not that I'm sitting on this dais, I'm a world leader. No, it's a learning process throughout. So leadership to me is an art, not a science. Leadership cannot be taught. It can be experienced. Leadership can be role modeled. Leadership is about walking the talk. Leadership is about living our values day in, day out. Leadership is about inspiring people with your own behaviors and attitudes. And, when say that, okay, there's a classroom type of leadership, when we go there, learn something, this is great. We learn the concepts. But the concepts are ideal thing. There we want to go up to, but there is a reality. So between the concepts and reality, there's a gap. And the gap is basically your experience. How do you bridge the gap? And that's where I think leadership makes a difference. In terms of leadership, I think it is also beyond a transaction. We are dealing with human beings, not the commodities. We people say that there's a what you call technical quotient, then there is a emotional quotient. There is one more quotient, decency quotient. Are you fair? Are you transparent? Are you decent? Are you respectful about the others? How would you like to be treated? The way you treat your people, right? That's also very important. Put yourself into their shoes. And finally, to your point, Sanjay, leadership is not a birthright. Sometimes we think that I come from baby boomers or Gen X, and the leadership is the birthright of Gen X or baby boomers. No, there are new generations also who can equally bring good promise, good potential to the position that we are in. And therefore, it is that makes a difference in terms of how they fit into the role. So to answer your question very specifically, there are different leadership strategies that I have seen and I have adopted in my organization and also in, I was the learner in American Express. We can share more as a part of the discussion.
So yeah, thanks, Sunil. Thank you very much. Absolutely, absolutely. We were all learners struggling, and sort of one of our senior leaders at American Express had told me that there is no precedence, and we've all got a little bit of a sword in our hands, and we are running through a thick jungle. We have no idea where the jungle is going to lead us with direction. All we know is that whatever comes in front of us, we have to just thrash our way into it and sort of keep progressing because that's the way the world is, and you have to keep moving and moving. Where you're finally going to end up, very rarely does anybody really have any visibility right now. So, Sunil, I echo that completely. So, for example, one of the questions that maybe Jaideep you can answer. Jaideep and I have also been together at American Express. In fact, though we've worked in different timings, but this is a team that is old and ancient. Jaideep, when I see the leaders of today, I find that there are three competencies that seem to have come. There's a whole list of competencies leaders need to have. There is no doubting that. But I really see three competencies that sort of come up to the top. And the three competencies are all about being global, for example. When I see the people who have done extremely well for themselves, and Indian names in the global world are now nothing new. So many top companies have Indian CEOs already, or at least ethnically Indian CEOs. And all I see is fantastic exposure globally, very, very good understanding of the business itself, having good idea about the new age technologies, but also very importantly, networking, collaboration. I think these are the three aspects of a CEO or a head of a global unit or head of a unit, which is, so I'd like, for example, you to give me an idea about, or give everyone an idea about what is your take on these three skills, whether it is easy to inculcate these three skills? And are there more that you sense which are important, or anything that comes top of mind?
Sure. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jaideep Agarwal. As Sanjay mentioned, I'm the leader of the Warner Brothers Discovery Global Capability Center here. Just to give you a background, some of our franchises like Harry Potter, Friends, Big Bang Theory, Game of Thrones, Aquaman, and et cetera, and all. So I think I go back to what Captain Raghu said in the morning is, and the last pillar, which he spoke about Alzheimer's and storytelling. We are in the business of storytelling. We create content, we tell stories, and as part of our distribution vehicles or channels, we use different vehicles or channels to tell our stories. And how engrossing those stories are people willing to come back and listen to the stories once again? Or people just see it as a tissue rejection saying, hey, you know what? I didn't like that story fundamentally, right? So that's the essence of who we are. Now, if we were to intersperse that from a lens of leadership, so a typical Hollywood studio, this was a $31 billion Warner Media, got acquired by $11 billion Warner Brothers by Discovery. So now you have a $44 billion trying to stay in a leadership position. What does leadership mean? I mean, I think it's a state of mind, first of all. What effective, and it's not got to do anything with the position. I could be a CEO, yet I may not be the leader. I could be the base level analyst, and yet I could be the leader in my own thought process. So fundamentally, I mean, there are a couple of experiences I can share with you in terms of how things have happened. And the three tenets which you spoke about, I feel these are all vehicles in which help you be a better leader. Be it having a mindset which is more global, whether you network with other people or whether you are collaborating with others. It's an aspect of how do people perceive me? Are they looking at me as, hey, you know what? I want to be like him. I want to be like her. Or am I able to define a North Star and I'm able to motivate people and take them along in the journey to reach out to that North Star? So fundamentally, to me, that's what leader is. While leadership, as we define as it's a pluralism around what are some of the characteristics on that. Clearly, I mean, I do remember one of the leaders way back in Amex. I was extremely frustrated one fine day with certain transitions I was doing. I'm like, hey, what the hell? Why can't they get it? And blah, blah, blah. Early on in your careers, when you are hardly 5 to 8 years out of your MBA engineering and you think you are God's gift to womankind or mankind and you just walk on water. And he just told me a very simple thing. Don't let your short-term ego come in the way of your long-term career. That has stayed with me for over 25 plus years. I think in my mind, leadership is about getting your ego way down at the extreme end of your priorities. It should not even be a priority. What you are talking about is, how can I take a set of people along with me and take them along to deliver the promised land? So that's what I feel are a fundamental tenets of being a leader or being a part of a leadership. Second, it's not necessary that you will be in that role every single moment. I think more often than not, if you look at a 24 or a 48 hour, you will be moments when you are more a follower than a leader, because there are aspects of a role, aspects of, say, technology or something which you are learning from someone else. It just doesn't matter that you're not, because you're not a subject matter in those aspects. But the role of a leader is to reach out to the respective individual and know who's the best for something. Make sure you are providing that vehicle for that individual to come forward and present that point of view. I really like the analogy which Captain Raghu said in the morning. It's a state of being a gardener. You are nourishing and individuals for their skills, for their expertise, etc. To me, that is what leadership is about. And to connecting it back to what you said about collaboration, networking, having a global mindset, absolutely. The more broader you are, the better it will be for you to be able to connect all the dots. I mean, that's the way I would define leader and a leadership. Say, Sanjay.
One of the things that really resonates is what Captain Raghu said in the morning about how the industry is likely to grow so much and so much demands are going to come up on leadership. So we need to actually inculcate a sense where we can grow our leaders from within. So it's an organic growth of leadership that we are going to be, looking at. And sustainability actually comes from building up your leadership ladder to an extent that, you're pretty much sure about how the next level of leadership is going to shape up. And then you have the advantage of molding that leadership. And actually, one of the biggest problems we find is, identifying the right set of talents. And once you've really been able to identify, etc., and then, connect up. So that's, so yes, of course.
Can I make 2 points on this global mindset?
Yeah, sure.
So global mindset, we think that global mindset is a very big elephant in the room. Actually, 2 things that I have seen in my experience. One is that when we are sitting miles away from where the business is done, we are kind of cutting ourselves from the business. We think that our business is the shared services or global business services, etc. We ourselves restricted to it. The global mindset is basically being there in the business, linking to your CEO goals. What is your CEO expecting? What is your organization expecting? Are you linking your goals to your CEO's goals so that you can see that what strategy CEO is adopting and how you can fit that strategy into your shared services organization? That's one. The second is that global mindset is also about knowing the corporate culture. When we talk about global, we think that we are not global being in India. We are actually global. Being in India, we are global because people outside of India look up to us as a solution provider. And therefore, it is very important on both sides that we understand each other's culture. And what is organization culture? What binds us together? How they organize themselves, how we are organized, link the two.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. In fact, not the topic of conversation right now, but one of the issues that we've found GCCs to still have, while it's fashionable to call many of our organizations as GCCs, but many of us are not necessarily truly GCCs in the true sense, because we still continue to think ourselves as service centers. And the definition of what a customer is, it changes. For GCCs, and I can tell you this is true for many leaders within the GCCs who think that their parent organizations are their customers. If you were to ask this person very blindly, suddenly, first thing when he wakes up and says, please tell me who's your customer, he's going to name one guy in the US or in European country somewhere who this fellow is servicing and say, this guy is my customer. Why is he your customer? Because this is the one who pays me. That's a very restricted, my personal opinion. You cannot be thinking of, especially if you're a leader of that stature and you want to become a global leader, you can't be thinking of that fellow sitting in the US as your customer or the team or the group. The customer is the one customer for the entire organization, which is the customer of the company that we are all a part of. So that's the only customer we need to think about. When we say customer first, that's the customer first. Of course, I don't want to get into the client, customer, consumer kind of a debate at this moment, but if consumer and customer is the same thing, then that's the customer, if it is. For retail organizations, many of them, they are common. So if you carry that goal saying this is the way it works, then that's the only way. We were talking about, now let me come to Sandeep and say, I'm sorry, it just happens to be sequential from left to right. Sandeep, we're talking about now and new and next. That's the theme of the talk anyway. Now, new and next. And I'm keen in also seeing that how you in your experience are changing your mindset and your team on how you are identifying what are the practices that you need to do to identify next steps, promote next steps, mentor them, sort of, help them along, etc. So what are the things that I can tell you one thing, whatever we've done till now, whatever we've gone through till now, that's not likely to last much longer. That's not likely to happen much, to take us a lot further. Newer things are happening. Newer methodologies are coming up. So what's been your experience?
Great question. And let me give an analogy to our personal life, because at the end of it, as one of my CEOs used to say, business is personal. Business is personal. It's a very short statement, but it is personal. If you have personal connects, the business works well with your customers, your employees, everything. But I think there would be several people who are much younger than us sitting here. But as you shift, as you were saying, that there is a significant paradigm shift. As I was telling one of my team members, that perhaps we are the last generation which listens to our parents and the first generation which listens to our kids. If you take that analogy in the corporate world or in the GCCs, I think it's the newer generation as they are coming in. There are different aspirations, there are different motivators for them. What we have seen in case of Worli, and even in earlier in Tata Motors and the Jaguar Land Rover, was people get more associated to a sense of purpose. So the purpose could be at the enterprise level. So what we are seeing in case of Worli, our vision and Worli is in the business apart from doing projects in the energy sector. It is the largest company which is in sustainability solutions. So the purpose of Worli, or the vision of Worli, is to make world more sustainable, which resonates with the younger generation, because they can join any organization where they can have the skills, they can learn the skills, they can learn about Gen AI, they can learn about multiple other things. But the sense of purpose is what I would say, in my experience, has helped the most. Sense of purpose at the enterprise level, sense of purpose at the GBS or the GCC level. And as you rightly said, Sanjeev, right? So again, another anecdote, we were, and I think Manish sitting there would remember, in case of Tata Motors, we were 3 years down the line when we set up the GBS, and we were to present to the CEO and the executive committee, and we were very happy. All the SLAs agreed, everything was fine. And then I went for a presentation to the CEO. He said, "That's all right. These are all hygiene factors. Tell me what problems are you solving for my employees? What problems are you solving for my dealers who are customers of Tata Motors? And what problems are you solving for our suppliers?" Which means that, okay, are you able to contribute to the larger purpose of the organization? Then we pivoted the whole GBS around, and we started looking at more at outside in perspective. I think that gave a sense of purpose to a number of people to be associated and grow with it, because you're solving the problems. You're not just doing transactions. So that's one part of it. Some of the practical things we have started doing as a part of the leadership team within Worli is to develop the next cadre of leaders. We have deliberately started delegating. So each one of us and my direct reports and their direct reports have to select a meeting when they need not be there, and then delegate it to the next in line. So that way, it's simple to say, but it's difficult for us to step out and delegate it. So these are some of the mechanisms we have said that, okay, how do we build the next and the next and the next line? Yes, you have a succession planning, everybody does it, but how do you practically implement? So some of these things are the things that we have started doing, which is giving results, because I completely agree that leaders are not defined by the hierarchy or position. Leaders are defined by how they are working towards whatever work they do. And we are now seeing emergence of a significant leaders, which is creating that leadership bench strength, which helps us do succession planning. So tomorrow, as we said, if I get stuck by a bus, we have somebody who is more capable, perhaps.
Perhaps. Fantastic. Actually, one of the serious risks that at least I have noticed, I'm sure everyone has, is that very often we actually look at subsequent levels of leaders as competition. And we get wary of having to sort of give them so much of knowledge and understanding and depth for the fear that they may one day replace you. And that inherent fear I've seen may not be apparent, but is visible at times, especially if you've spent time in the organization. Urs, let me ask you, you have a very varied and checkered history. You've been a consultant, you now, head marketing with a global organization. In the past, you have so much of history with many large corporates. And, what kind of changes that you see in leaders' capabilities as the years have progressed, now that you meet so many of tops of businesses? Do you sense that there is a change of the style of understanding and bringing up of leaders for the future, for tomorrow, versus the ones maybe in the past, our age? I consider myself as the dinosaur age. So, do you notice these changes and what those changes could be?
Yes. First, I would like to reflect on what you just said about that people are scared to pull up additional people. I mean, there's a nice saying: A people hire A people, B people hire C people. So you need to have a certain self-confidence in yourself to pull up new people. You can also see that in a Peters principle. People are then promoted to a level where they are incapable of what they're doing, and then of course they're scared of getting new people up. And I think that's as an organization, you need to work on that these kind of patterns are not developing in your organization. Getting to what are the requirements, I think people skills are getting more and more important. You saw it also what the captain presented this morning, this gardener, you mentioned it also before, this gardener leadership. It has a lot to do with situational leadership, I think, that you go and you see what kind of people do I need in a certain field. If you talk about AP processes, which are very standardized, there it is, you need more authoritarian leadership because you need to really get things done in a very specific way. When you talk about other services, especially technology development, data analytics, where you need to have people to think out of the box, you need totally different leaders to lead these people. Because if you have there an authoritarian leader who says, oh, I saw you didn't fix this within the time or whatever, then they get, the people will not follow such a person. And in this context, you need leaders who are aware of the situation, who are empathic of the people they are leading, and develop then the next line also in the same pattern.
You're right, absolutely. First of all, yes, getting out of here. So there is this, I'm reminded of a statement. I can't exactly recall that statement, but one of my leaders told me that people rise to their best level of incompetency. I'm sorry, I'm sort of missing the exact words, but what it meant really was that there's this glass ceiling, and you only recognize the glass ceiling because you recognize that you are incapable of moving any further than that. And that's the last step of your career approach. And if you've reached that, then you're right. You will actually find somebody who can zoom past and and become a boss, your boss one day. That's the fear that most people have. So, question now to anybody on the panel who can answer this. Do you believe that these traits that we have need for in the upcoming future, knowing your business, knowing the technology, being aware of the events and upcoming changes in the field in the future, and at the same time, being a worldly person, both from a networking point of view as well as awareness. Do you think they are formally teachable traits? Do you think it is? Do you think a GCC school, for example, or a business kind of a school? I'm not talking about the MBA schools, etc., but a school which is more from a let's take GCC for us, for the audience here, mostly from GCCs. So if you were to look for a head of a GCC, can you school the person formally? Do you think it's formally possible?
I'll take the first shot.
Yeah.
So I think I've so far in the last 28, 29 years, I have very firmly believed that skills are teachable, but attitude is not. So whenever so far hiring, promotions we looked at is we have given more importance, or I have given more importance to attitude and rather than skills. Is it something we spoon-fed to develop a leader? No, but there are certain things that could be done to nurture that person to become a leader. And I think that's what we would have to see. It's not, there is no course material available on, okay, how can you be the next GCC leader? It's looking at those attributes, nurturing that person on, building on some of the strengths that the individual has, and then basically helping on some of the areas of improvement is how you nurture. I think personally think it boils down to the attitude rather than the skills.
I mean, I'll say a yes and a no answer. There are aspects of the role which you can clearly are teachable. I mean, those are harder aspects of the role, very clearly, be it in terms of, do you know X, do you know Y, do you know Z, and then over a period of time, you learn those aspects. Then there is an aspect of the unknown, right? How are you responding to an event which is in the realm of unknown? Now, that's what separates good leaders from not so good leaders is, am I responding or am I reacting, right? So in that area, a lot is learned through observations or years of, I would say, observing different sets of leaders to say, oh my God, in a situation like this, that's how X responded or that's how Y responded, right? So is there a school to be able to teach you? Probably no. But then are you observant enough to say, hey, you know what? There are mentors we have in mind to say, what would he or she have done in a situation like that? And then you suddenly, at the back of your mind, you have a situation or you recall, and then that's the way you look at it. So which is why I say a yes and a no answer. Yes, certain aspects, because there are specific people who can take care of those aspects. What's the role of a GBS or a GCC leader? If you were to look at it, it's like, think of a string of pearls. The leader's role is that of a string. How are you binding those pearls together so that they are all walking or they are all connected and going in cohesion in a particular direction? I mean, that's what I would respond to that question.
Yeah,
Sunil, your view.
am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay, one change which I have seen in the last 23 years is that, when I was hired, prior to American Express or within American Express for my technical skills, like how good accountant I am, how much knowledge of financial reporting, corporate reporting I have. So these were the broad parameters under which a person was assessed for a job. Now I have seen that there's a sea change. While this domain expertise, technical skills are given, people will bring that as a part of their academic background. But what we also look at beyond, and which is very important competencies we look at, is that how tech savvy I am in terms of the emerging technology skills. Am I keeping myself abreast of artificial intelligence, blockchain, Internet of Things, etc., etc.? I may not be technically expert on that, but am I aware Another important thing is that, in a big companies or maybe in a small companies also, it is not that project is driven by one team. We are dependent upon each other for support. There is a IT, there is HR, there is accounting, there is a risk. So we have to work together. So the collaboration skill we assess. Now, to your point, all these skills can be taught or these can be observed. I think it's both. I agree with Jaideep. Like collaboration skills, how you can teach people about the collaboration skills. It has to come from within. It's the requirement of the role that you have to step out of your room and connect with your colleagues, right? To provide support. And then you can be supported. But in terms of other soft skills, for example, the problem solving skills, this can be taught. There is a methodology to solve a problem. First, what's the problem statement? And what are the root causes of the problem? And what are the potential solutions, etc., like Lean Six Sigma methodology. So these can be taught. So what I'm saying is that, these are very important skills which are over and above the technical and domain expertise that we look at before hiring.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're saying is right, but what I see is that maybe not from a pure schooling point of view, I would say like an MBA school or some such thing, but there are so many now instances available where many of these competencies are also being imparted and observed, not necessarily in the specific style, and you say, right. For example, an attitudinal thing. I'm just picking up the word that you mentioned, attitudinal. Very, very difficult to school attitude. Very difficult, but not impossible. And the army, for example, one of the things that it does give you enough impetus for you to recognize that your attitude needs to undergo a change. I'm just giving that one example, top of mind. If you sit down, I can think of some more, I guess. Let me ask you one final question. I know we're running out of time. And please feel free to answer any of you. It's not specifically directed to any one person. If you were to live your life all over again, all of us are seasoned people, we've lived enough of our lives. If you were to live your life all over, let's say if you were to live last 25 years of your life all over again, knowing what you know now and being the heads of your units today, do you think you would have done things differently in the past so as to have this position a lot earlier? For instance, if you want to crunch this and say, 25 years it has taken me from, level 1 till level 8 that I am on now, and I want to reach this much earlier, would you have done things differently from your knowledge that you have now? Would you have done things differently in the past? So anyone wants to take a shot at it? Urs, do you want to begin?
Yes, of course, there are always things where you would say, yeah, I should have done that more different. And I think the direction would be stronger because now I know what's relevant. In the beginning, when you start your career, you focus on the content. When you want to be a leader, and of course you develop the will to be a leader in the working environment because you see other people, and there, I think a bit more persistence, maybe a bit more focus on leadership and less on the technical, on the execution.
Yeah, I mean, I can share. I think if there was someone who was able to help articulate certain aspects of career roles much early on, probably there wouldn't have been as much dissonance in my head. Would I have done things differently? Possibly no, but then at least from a mental peace standpoint, I could not have. Like, I go by the philosophy of think of your career as an I, letter I, English alphabet. The first 1/3 of year at the top, do 2, 3, 4, 5 different things, because you never know what are you going to be good at or what are you going to like, right? Once you identify, hey, that's what I like, think of the middle vertical line of I, go deep into that. Because that's what's going to give you the experience or the expertise in that. And then the bottom I is about once you've gained that, now you can go replicate a lot of those leadership dimensions across different components. So that's the way, if somebody had explained that to me early on in my career, I would have had a much better internal, I would say, less stress is what I would say.
I completely agree with you because I started my career by selling televisions. Then I started selling software. Then I started implementing software. Then I moved to the other side of the table to do outsourcing. And that's when I realized, so the top part was over, then you go deeper, deeper, deeper. And I think, and absolutely, if we had knew, but see, very few amongst us know exactly what we want from life. There are some lucky people, perhaps the newer generation knows what they want from life. I think we have discovered it. So, yeah.
Sunil, last word from you.
Yeah, I think, in terms of, there's a vision, there's a shared vision, and there's a reality. I think we have to connect these three dots, very important. Because sometimes we think that it's our vision, we don't actually articulate the vision with people. It has to be implemented by the people across the organization, therefore it has to be shared vision. And therefore reality also we have to understand, because sometimes we talk at 40,000 feet level, we don't understand the reality. And that's very important to connect these two.
Thank you, gentlemen, I know the time's up and Sangeeta is looking very sternly at me. But we will take one question at least, if there is anyone. Okay, there's one gentleman right up front. Short question, please. We are out of time already.
Yeah, yes. So thank you, panel. Wonderful insights, from each one of you. So when we talk about culture, actually, unfortunately, it is driven by the people. When we talk about more about, no, this company has a very good culture, but then ultimately at the end of the day, it is a person who is driving it. So it again comes to the stage where it is self-driven, like whatever he can do, he'll be doing it. So in any of your, careers, this was the entire panel, basically, anyone can answer. So there is a situation where you are in a role, and obviously, as Sanjay mentioned, there is a person who is again aspiring for it. So how did you, come out of that challenge? Okay, I mean, ego, very well mentioned by again Jaideep. So we have to cut down our ego. But if you have grown up to this level, definitely there could be situations where another person is definitely waiting for that position. So how did you cope up with the challenge and then come across?
Who is this question directed to?
Anyone can answer.
Anybody? Volunteers?
Hey, I mean, the way I understood was you refer to around, because it's very hard to
It's
hear.
hard to hear.
I almost didn't, but just
Yes.
to essence, it's about the culture and people wanting to take on your job or something in that space.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Etc. Look, all I can share is, and that it happens naturally over a period of time for you, right? We are so used to receiving things all our life. We have been. There's a point in time when you have to reverse and you have to start giving versus receiving, where the pleasure of giving is more than the pleasure of receiving. Okay. And back to linking it to your culture aspect, it's about the tone at the top, period. Right? Whatever tone you are setting at the top, this organization or this group is about greed, or this group is about collaboration, whatever. It's the tone at the top, and that's what will flow down to the absolute bottom of the pyramid in that part. Now, connecting it to, hey, if there's someone else who wants to take on your job, believe me or not, if he or she is more capable than you to take that job, whether you want it or not, he or she will take away that job. You won't even realize, and he or she is already doing it. If it's a number two, and he or she is more capable, it is. Maybe that's the wake-up call for me or you to say, you know what, maybe my time here is up because I've given whatever I could, the value I could add. I mean, one of the quotes I always have from one of my leaders was, the value you add to the firm and the value the firm adds to you has to be in an equilibrium. The moment there is a disequilibrium, either of you will part. I mean, that's the way I want to respond in whatever I could understand of your question, basically, given the acoustics here.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I
you
think
very
just one point, I think, as Captain Raman also said, right? So culture can be defined with very simple statements. Like we saw it something for Mahindra, that can percolate down. If it's too vague, nobody understands it. So like Mr. Ratan Tata used to say, I decide what I want to do first and then find a way. or even the current chairman, I think he came up with something which is about something like that. Tension nahi lene ka aur gyan nahi dene ka type. So it's very simple, easy to understand. That translates into the culture, I think.
Thank you. I'm sure there are more questions, and we can take the questions over the free time whenever we sort of meet socially over networking. In the meanwhile, thank you very much, gentlemen, for the fantastic interaction.
Thank you very much, everyone, for that very, very relatable session. Please stay for a moment. I'd like to request Mr. Ajay Wadhwa, CEO, TML Business Services. Please come and give a memento to Mr. Sunil Kumar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gaurav Malik, Global Director, HCL Tech, request you to please come and give a memento of thanks to Jaideep Agarwal.
Hi. Thank you.
Calling upon Sanjay Dora, ex-COO Tesco GBS.
Not here.
It's not here.
Sanjay Dora, think he's not there, so maybe, is he there?
Rakesh.
Don't think
Why
so.
don't you
So
go?
maybe, Sanjay, you could give the memento to
Yeah, Sanjay
Sandeep
Gupta.
Kulkarni. One Sanjay versus another, good enough, I
The
guess.
other Sanjay. Right. Thank you very much.
Mr. P. Ram Narsingh Rao, Director IT and Projects, GBS, Dr. Reddy's. Please come up and give a memento to our friend from Switzerland, Urs. One group photograph.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
A group photograph.
Like this?